All right, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. We have a couple new friends on the call with us. I'm glad everybody could join. So far, it looks like we've got a reasonably full house. This is great. We are going to jump straight into Q&A. What I will do is, let's see. I see Amber. I see you. I think we've got another new friend that's going to be joining us as well. But at some point during our Q&A, Amber, and I may have told you this already, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, talk about your goals a little bit, and then also say what something is that you might need from me and from the group here as well to help you be able to achieve your goals. So with that, I'll let you stew on that a little bit, and we can go from there. In fact, Marshall is just joining right now. Marshall, I just told one of the others at some point I'll call on you to be able to introduce yourself, and I'll ask you a few things. One, just introduce yourself. Two, talk about your goals a little bit. And then three, what do you need from me and from the group to help you be successful? So I'll let you guys stew on that a little bit. For those of you that came with questions, go ahead and start raising your hands. Again, that's hopping down to participants and selecting raise hand. And we will get going from there. I'll jump over to everybody. We'll get everybody's questions answered. So go ahead and hop in there. All right, Brian, hopping over to you. Brian, what do you got for me?
Okay. How you doing? How everybody doing? Very nice, Blake. Getting the group to get even bigger. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. I just have just a quick question. I know that one of your biggest things that you like to use is I just didn't want to have an extra expense, right out the gate. But I'm seriously considering, and I know I think they do like a week. How accurate do you find the comps? Because what I'm having, like the ARV issues, my market has so many off deals that I see that get sold. I don't have pictures, so I'm having pretty large difficulty figuring out the exact ARV. So I was just curious is if PropStream, because like it collects a lot of data, if they are a little bit more accurate, and if you've ever had any issues with them, because if I can get those numbers, I'm pretty sure I can really start moving, because
Okay.
that's some of the issues that I've kind of had.
Okay. So you're saying that your biggest challenge is finding reliable, essentially determining a reliable ARV.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. So and your mix up right now, or the challenge is you're seeing a lot of off market properties that don't have pictures, that you're unsure as to
Yes.
whether or not to use them for comps. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is if it's not comparable to that property, I'd disregard it. PropStream, I don't know if that's going to answer your question on this one, because
Okay.
their ARV, or their estimate on the value, it's kind of like the Z estimate on Zillow. Like, is it in the right general area? Yeah, it's probably a little bit better than the Z estimate, but the sweet spot of PropStream is you're able to get down into all of the different comps. Now, you being a realtor, do you have access to the MLS listings in the market that you're looking at?
No, that's the problem. The MLSs
Okay.
are very regional. So, and that's the thing. Like a lot of things in New Jersey are pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's some off-market stuff, but a lot of stuff you look at, there's not a ton of movement that way.
Okay.
So that is something that I'm not really used to in the Alabama market, because there's a
Right.
lot of off-market stuff, and even the stuff that's sold, like I said, I can't see pictures. So, because if I could see pictures, I could, I'd be able to
Right.
figure out and go from there. But like, you'll see something going for 25,000, and then you'll see something going for 82, and
Right.
it's just so difficult to try to get any type of concrete answer.
Yeah, no, that makes
And
sense.
all
So
of the
the method
realtors
that
that I've, yeah,
so the method
go ahead.
you're
Sorry.
using right now is running comps through Zillow, right?
hmm
Okay, great. So you can use
I'm running Zillow. What I do is I have a couple different streams that I'm doing. I try to blend everything. Obviously Zillow, will show some of the stuff. I have an app, as like you said, as a realtor, that kind of, I guess it's probably similar to PropStream. What it does is it looks at some of the sales in the area, and based off of what it thinks the house has, it comes up with a value.
okay.
But again, I use that. I probably rely on that the most, but still, without really knowing what's in the area, it's kind of hard to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I use a combination of everything. I even look at the MLS down there, and see what things are currently being listed at what price and how long they've been on, to try to give me a better idea.
Yeah.
Again, I try to blend everything, but there's just so many different numbers and nothing is really consistent. So I'm trying to
Okay.
find out a little bit more
Yeah. So in that
concrete
case,
information.
PropStream could help because they will give
Okay.
you prices for each individual property, whether it's on the
Mhm.
MLS or if it's public record. And if there are pictures, if there were pictures submitted, they're included. So that's one thing. I don't,
Okay.
ideally, you don't have to incur an additional fixed expense until you get to the point where you've got some cash flow coming in. So you've got, I think, two options. One option is join the MLS there, but that costs money, right? That's what will that cost you a couple grand, right? So it's almost like you'd rather just prop
I
stream.
think I have to be licensed I think I would have to be licensed in the state. I think
Mm,
that's how that would work.
that makes sense.
So I don't think
Yeah.
I would be able to do it. I mean, if it was just that, I mean, honestly, I could tell you my fees. It's like, like a few $100s. Sometimes it all depends, but I would say
Yeah.
at most it'd be $500 for the year. Which,
Okay.
if I'm going to be looking at all the properties, I would do it. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be licensed in that
Right.
state to do
Okay.
so.
So then that option's out. The other one, and I just came up with another one. You could call a couple of realtors there and see if you could get associate access and kick them
hmm
$100 or something like that, because
hmm
that ends up helping pay for their MLS access, but then you get access to the MLS. That's one. The other would be actually just find a realtor there to run comps for you.
Yeah, I've tried that. The issue that I've had, I don't know if it's because I am one or they're not taking me seriously. I don't know,
Mm,
but like they'll tell me numbers and maybe they'll give me like a property, but
mm,
like when somebody has me to run comps, I do like a whole spreadsheet to
right.
show and with pictures and everything else, and I haven't gotten that, so I'm like, maybe I'm not talking to enough realtors, but like the 4 or 5 that I have, I've been very disappointed. I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm like,
Right.
this is not really that
Right.
professional, and I like to be as professional as possible.
Well, because for ARV, you've really got two numbers that you're looking for. Like you've got an initial pass, which helps you determine, is this property worth putting any more time into,
hmm
right? And then you've got the final pass, which is check with an expert, right? It sounds like the this is the first one you're working on. You're working on figuring out, should I even spend any time on this?
Yeah, I guess so. That's probably right, because if you don't meet the first criteria, obviously
Mm,
it's not gonna continue. So yeah.
yeah. So in that case, I think prop stream would really help that,
Okay.
because I think you still need someone to give you a an estimate on the value of a property. Sometimes what you can get to is between those two. The final is like the expert saying this is what it's worth, and maybe that's actually them running comps, and then the first one is really just a barrier to entry, right? It's a filter that you put it through, because if you find out that you need the value to be 100 and the value comes in nowhere near 100, it comes in at 70, you're like, okay, I don't need to look at this anymore. But if
hmm
it comes in at 95, well, then you're saying, well, maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room there, and maybe they're a little bit off, so I just need to take that into account. So for the front end of things, you can ask a realtor and say, hey, ballpark, what do you think this is? It's a 3-2, 1,500 square feet property in this area. What do you think that is? And they might say between 90 and 100, or between 95 and 100. And you would need to specify that it's rental grade. rental grade property, this area. What do you think? They should be able to give you an estimate of within $5,000, right? So 95 to 100. Worst case scenario, they give you 90 to 100. At least you've got the right ballpark, given their market expertise. In that case, I would use 90 or 95, whatever the bottom end of their bound is for the ARV, just to run your initial numbers. Until you've got a relationship with a realtor that is willing to do that for you a little bit faster turnaround, you will have to run your own first numbers. And I think it's good for you to learn how to do that. That's probably not as challenging or a learning curve for you, since you've got so much experience doing that as a realtor. But for others, it really is important to know how to run your own comps. So yeah, you might consider looking at PropStream, because let me show you. I'll show you what it looks like. In fact, do you have a property address that I could look up?
Yeah, sure. Let's do, because I was looking at this one today. Where is it? 120 Adler Avenue in Birmingham.
Okay. I'll go ahead
Sorry,
and
it's
share
Alder,
my
Alder.
ALDER. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share this with you right here. You can see that?
Yeah.
120 ALDER Avenue, Birmingham. Okay. So this is what PropStream is going to show you. The amount of equity that it expects to have. In general, these numbers aren't super helpful.
Okay.
Because they're not super accurate. The average comps, it essentially takes a weighted average of properties within a certain radius, like a half-mile radius or something like that, that are similar to that. But it gives you a general range, right? So for example, this makes no sense. Average comps, $20,000, estimated equity, $100,000. Right? That doesn't make any sense. If they were
You see
flipped,
that's what I'm going through. It's tough.
right? So you're also seeing that the property value in this area looks like it's going up. So in order to find the comps for this property, I go to details, comparables. Okay. And now it is going to automatically filter. I think it's 10% square footage up and down, but you can edit that. It'll go back a year and the distance of half a mile. Okay. Right now, we're only looking at public record data. So if we want MLS data, we've got to select MLS. And that's the only comp like that with these characteristics. Okay. So we need to change one of these. It's either make it a little bit bigger, the square footage, make the date go back further, increase the distance. I like to add public record first. Okay. So public record, these are 4 1s. So what is this? What are the specs on this? A 3.2, 2,000 square feet. Okay. So you're looking at you've got a 4-1 comp that has pictures. It was sold for 16 and 18, anywhere between $6 and $10 a square foot. Cash, no distance. Okay. So it's pretty close. Built in 1920, 1930. Where's this house? This is built in 1920. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the picture of this one. Okay. Not a whole lot to go off of, right? It looks like the inside could look great. It could look terrible. You just don't know. Let's check this one out. Okay. Here we go. Boom. That makes sense. I mean, that pink trim, man, someone's got to do that on one of their properties. That is pretty. So yeah, I mean, this makes sense, right? It's $20,000 for a house. I mean, you've got flooring peeling up over here, kind of a faux brick wall. It needs a lot of work, right? So that is like your floor. This is probably closer to what you're going to purchase it at, not what it's going to ARV at, right? So it's definitely not going to be 20 grand. That at least gives you some information, because when I run comps, my approach is find my worst case, like the floor, where I know that it's not going to be this, it's going to be better than this. And then also find my ceiling, and then try and narrow in those things so that I get to the point where I can say, it's probably going to be between 80 and 85. So I'll take 80, right? So if I'm analyzing this and I've only got this much information, I'm going to increase this. I'm actually going to decrease the square footage to say 1200. See if that does anything. And then what I'm going to do, okay, so that increased a lot. Okay, that's good. Then what I'd probably do, and this is just tinkering, but what I'd probably do is I'd increase the date range back to say like September, because March of last year was when everybody started losing their minds about COVID, and the market really started constricting. But so let's just look at these properties. 4-1, 2400, 6. Okay, we looked at that one. 1224 Mitchell Street, sold at 18.4. I want to say that's one of the ones we looked at. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at this one. This one's MLS sold for 28.5, 79 days on market, and it's a 2-1. Okay. That looks like it's probably going to be in decent shape, but since we can't see the inside, it's a little bit difficult. But you've got a house that's a 2-1, valued at, where is it? $23 a square foot, right? So if you were to map that $23 a square foot to your 2,000 square foot house times $23 a square foot, you're looking at $46,000 for the house. So that's not perfect, right? That's not a number that you should bet your life on. That's a number just to give you a reference point, right? So $46,000, then maybe you go to your soft offer calculator and you plug that in. You say, okay, is that close? Just gives you some context. Let's also go down and check this one out. This 918 First Street. It's 41.5. 3.2, 1,400 square feet. Estimated value 120. Wow. See, that's another thing. Like, it sold for 41. And it was on market for 308 days. All right, so $28 a square foot. I would bet it might even be a little bit higher if it's in really good condition, right? Like if you rehab it and it's in decent shape, I think that could make sense. So let's go back to October 1st of 2019. And let's just go MLS because we're getting a lot of results now. We looked at First, we looked at Alder. Oh, we didn't look at this one. So this is a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,500 square foot house at $55 a square foot on your street. Okay. It doesn't look like it's going to be like retail grade. It doesn't look like it's going to be in great shape, right? So I think it's probably reasonable to think around there. So $55 a square foot. You're looking at 110. So again, that's a pretty wide range, but it allows you to run your soft offer calculator. Let's do this. Because then we can tinker with the numbers and try and science this thing. How much is it listed for?
19.
Okay. 19. Any estimate on rehab?
No, it's going to be a full, but I don't have a number yet. That's what I'm working on.
Okay. If you were to round to the 10,000 and just guess?
40.
Okay. Okay. How much do you think it would rent for?
I think probably around 900.
Okay. Okay. Just with those, we're looking at 1.53. That's pretty good, right? That's decent. Now we just got to go. So that answers the question, is it going to cash flow? So on a property like this, maybe you cash flow $350, right? Now we've got to figure out, can we get our money back? So let's say the ARV is $80,000. Let's say it's $85,000. That gets us under the 70% area. So this thing, if these things are true, it's got to be $85,000 or more for you to be able to get your money back out of it. So this allows us to just tinker a little bit. It's going to cash flow if these numbers are reasonably accurate. right? Even if this is 50, you're still going to be able to cash flow that property at 50. Maybe it'll be $200 a month, but 1.3 and above is decent. Okay, so let's say it's 40. That means you need it to be at $85,000 or more. Right now, what I would do is take that amount, say, okay, if it does come out to be that 110, we're in really good shape.
Yeah.
But if it comes out to be something closer to 60, you're going to end up leaving essentially 20% in, right? So you'll end up leaving money in the deal. So then I just keep going. So I don't see the inside of that one. We looked at this one, I believe. Yeah, we looked at that one. So let's go out 0.75. Okay, let's look at this one. That's a 5-1. That's not a great comp. 3 1.5, 1,200 square feet, $105 a square foot. Okay. Okay. That honestly, that doesn't look like it's in great shape. The inside probably is better taken care of. It's been vacant. How long was it on the market? Let's see. It was on the market for 1 day. Dang. Yeah, you can't see the inside. Let's see what else. So we got, okay, we're still good. Let's check this one out. This is 30. If the inside's anything like the outside, it probably makes sense why it's 30. 86. Okay. Okay, wood paneling. That looks like it could be laminate, could be, I can't really make it out. Okay, it looks laminate to me. Still a question mark, but I mean, it's not updated. Right? Wood paneling everywhere. It's in decent shape. But again, I mean, something that you rehabbed and put brand new fresh paint on and whatnot, that's probably going to be nicer than this. So if I were to estimate a comp, what was that one? That was 86.
Yeah, that was, I saw that one. I was looking at that earlier, A45 for Hibernian. That was probably the best one that I kind of could
So
find.
$55 a square foot. What did we say that was? 110. I mean, I would feel pretty comfortable at 100. And I would use that for my numbers going forward. Mm-hmm. And then I would get that number validated by an expert.
Okay.
Say, hey, I've got a pretty good idea that I'm going to move forward on this. If the ARV comps out, can you run me some comps to help me be able to make a good decision? And of course, if I end up closing on this property, I'm happy to kick you over kind of a thank you gift card or something like that, just because I really appreciate your time. And you can develop some rapport with them and say, I know what it's like because, I'm a realtor. I do this all the time too. So really appreciate your time or whatever. But does that help?
Yep.
So I think you might consider, and I've in the resources tab in Slack, I've got my affiliate link for PropStream. It's actually funny. They sent me like as a Christmas gift or something like that. They sent me a little mask that says PropStream on it. I was like, what? But yeah, so I mean, it would be good to at least try. I think their trial is 2 weeks. Try it out, see what you think. And heck, maybe there's somebody else in the group that would be up for splitting a membership with you. Cut the cost in half. So yeah, Taylor sent something over in the chat. He's seen me wearing that mask twice. It's reasonably comfortable, but could have sent me something cooler. But yeah, does that help, Brian?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if your biggest challenge is ARV, what I'd say is Yeah, try out the trial. I think for your kind of homework this week, try out the PropStream trial and run some of your own comps and get to the point where you feel like you're within five or maybe $10,000, but probably within $5,000 of the ARV, and then get that validated. But if you've got to use one different realtor every time so that you can run maybe five
Yeah.
comps and see how far off you are, that'll let you know, like, okay, I really need to validate these or get better at it, or I'm pretty close, right? And that way, I think it'll give you more confidence when you do run comps to say, I feel pretty confident that this is within $5,000 of this. I think that'll help you move forward on ARV, and then you'll be able to lock some stuff up.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Who else has something? Boom. Deepak, hopping over to you.
Hello.
Yeah.
I
How we
got a
doing,
question
man?
about something one wholesaler sent over, right? They sent a listing and it seems priced well. The ARV, according to PropStream, is 110, 120. They're asking 45 because there's a lot of work to be done, right? It's kind of tore apart and it needs a new roof. He's saying the foundation's fine, but it needs new flooring, paint, everything, right? Kitchen, bathroom. Um, but when I check PropStream on that, it shows that the owner refinanced and they have a 150,000 loan uh, that they took out like last year or something.
Yeah.
So how accurate is PropStream with that? So because how is he selling for 45 if he owes 100,000 more than that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes that data lags. I'm
Okay.
not sure on that specific. I mean, I could look it up, but I don't know that that would help us answer the question.
Uh-huh.
I personally, I'm not concerned with the outstanding debt on it. The reality is, if they've got to sell, they've got to sell. For example, maybe they're getting foreclosed on,
Okay.
and because there is a foreclosure moratorium, but there are certain loans that are
Uh-huh.
exempt from that moratorium.
Okay.
They're very specific loans, but they are exempt. I mean, if you go to your county list, there are a
Hmm.
lot of different properties that are still going to be auctioned off for foreclosure. I want to say in Smith County, we've got two or three right now.
Okay.
That means that properties are still being foreclosed on, just not at the rate that they used to be,
Uh-huh.
because Freddie and Fannie loans are exempt from that.
Protected. Right.
So they could be getting foreclosed on. Heck, maybe they took out a HELOC a
Mm.
year ago for up to $150,000, and then they didn't
Right.
pay it back, and now they're being foreclosed on. So I don't think that the outstanding money on the property should be a concern for you.
Okay.
If they are actually selling it at 45, the reality is that they've got it under contract for something less than that.
Right.
So while it might be a really painful and challenging situation for them, I mean, the situation is what it is, and so you can get it at 45. How much did you say the rehab was?
So we're estimating about 30 to 40, for the rehab. So if it depends on how much work on the kitchen, right? So I gotta get new appliances. So safe to guess on the higher side, like around 40.
Okay.
The
Okay.
contractor's saying 30, 35, but knowing him, right? I think he's working on one right now and it's a constant battle. Now he wants
Yeah.
more money and he wants more money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a change order and that was not part of the deal. So
Right. Yeah. Um, okay. So, what do you think it'll rent for?
So if it was rented to students, then it would rent for 500 a room. So it's a three bed, two bath. It's
Okay.
only 1.2 miles from the university, so it's great for students. If it wasn't to rent to students, it'd probably rent for about 1100, 1200, I think. But if it was to go to students, then it would probably rent for 1500.
Okay. So, is your property manager experienced with renting by room?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he
Good.
kind of they're one of the big ones for for university
Okay.
students.
Perfect.
So
Okay. Great. Yeah. So I would use the number like 1100, maybe 1200
uh,
on that one. So, in fact, I'm running my I'll share it with you guys, but I've got my soft offer calculator up. So let's use 1200 here. You said purchase price was 45.
45.
Rehab 40. ARV is 110.
It's prop stream saying 120.
Okay.
Right.
Did you run now? Is that the default estimate on PropStream, or did you run your own comps on it?
I mean, I looked at the comps, but I didn't do the math that you just showed right now. So
Okay.
I need to go back and do that,
Yeah. Well, let's do that again. I think that'll be valuable. Give me the address for the property.
Okay, so the address is 423. Sorry, no, it's 223 Avenue T as in Tom.
Lubbock?
Lubbock, Texas, yeah. 79415.
Okay, so let's do this. Boom. All right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, this one's weird. Right? They're even their analysis, their algorithms are getting kind of duped with this one. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
Estimated value 133.
Yeah.
Estimated equity, they're underwater, so I'm not terribly concerned with that. I will look at this just as contextual for me to know, is this property value declining a bunch? Because then I know it's probably going to need some work. But I pretty quickly go straight to details and then comparables. So we're looking at, okay, it's a 3.2, 1,600 square foot. And we are looking at, we don't have any super helpful comps. Let's back this date range up to get some properties before COVID really exploded. Okay, that doesn't help a whole lot, yeah, especially given that price point. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do.
And I think click both, now it's just showing you MLS.
Yeah.
Because there's, for whatever reason, there's a lot of sales
okay.
off record.
Okay, good. So then let's go. Okay, and we'll do both. Okay, so this one, 4-bed, 3-bath, so bigger, 2,000 square feet, but we can at least use it as a reference point. Okay, so this thing's in really good shape.
Right.
Right. I would use it as a reference point if it was, a reasonably close comp to what I was going to be doing. But this is, I mean, for sure you're not going to be close to.
This is 2-story, nothing like it.
Right. Yeah. So
Definitely.
that's 189.88. So you know that your price per square foot max is probably something like 180.
Right.
And it's probably less, but that's your highest that it's going to go.
90.
So, okay, here, let's try 0.75 miles. Okay. And then a bedroom max of 4. We got a 3.2 on our hands. We don't need 5 bedroom houses. We've seen this one. Okay, this is a 3.3, 1,800 square feet. Okay, so that's a new build.
Oh, yeah.
What year is yours? Yours is 1949. Let's look at this 215 one. This is really weird. That looks like a digital rendering almost.
Yes, it looks like someone's kind of redone it or something.
Right.
The interior looks okay, but the exterior doesn't look like they touched it up,
Right. Yeah. I mean, this isn't anything super fancy.
Yeah.
I think this is reasonably rental grade. The only thing is here, the kitchen. They've got nicer counters than you're probably going to put in.
Right.
But this is close to maybe a little bit above.
Above, yeah.
But we were just looking at, what was it? This 215. So that's 140 a square foot.
No, 70. Oh, no. How can it be 140?
Right here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
1,500 square feet.
Okay, okay.
That is the one we were just looking at, right?
Right. Yeah, that's it.
21, 26, 10th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then your square footage is 1620. So 1620 times 140, 225.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so that's another reference point. And if it were 225, you'd be gold, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Right.
you're in great shape. Another thing to consider, when we're looking at 13, right? We just looked at block 13 right here.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet that crossing over 84, anytime you cross over a main thoroughfare, it's your high likelihood for really changing demographics. So even this would be significant, but hopping over two of them is probably pretty significant too.
Right.
So that's something to consider as well. Here. Okay. Any other properties with pictures? 144. Look at this list though.
Right.
So look at all of the sold properties.
Right.
Public records sold. This one sold for $91,000.
3-2. This is kind of like it, I think.
Right. So the challenge is we don't
reasonable.
have pictures of it, but 3-2, 1,600 square feet.
Uh-huh.
And let's see, how many days was it? Oh, this is public record. Okay. So $54 a square foot.
Uh-huh. 87. See.
87,480. Okay. So this one, it's still way over there.
Right.
Let's do this. I'm going to take this. Have you looked at Zillow at all?
Zillow. Yes, I did. I think Zillow is probably around 110, I think, or something.
Okay. Because if you're going to evaluate this thing and you think it'll bring in 1,200 and its ARV is 120, you'll be able to get almost all your money out if it comes in at $40,000 of rehab.
Correct.
Now, 1.4 is fine because your upside is 1,500, right? But I would run it based on what you can lease it out for.
Okay.
So even 1,100 would give. That's still a good property. I try not to go too much lower than that. But I would bet that this number is probably going to be a little bit lower. I haven't seen pictures of it.
Yeah.
And then you could negotiate this price down and just say, hey, I'm running the numbers on this. I would need to get this at 38 for it to make sense.
Right.
And then if he came back on it, great. Right. If he comes back like that other one and said, nah, lowest I could go is 41. Then you say, all right, let's try.
So what happened on this one was, he put it on, it's an out of state wholesaler. He put it on one of the groups that I was a member of, and I sent him a message, and he said, oh, somebody already made an offer, and I'll reach out to you if it falls through. So he just called today and said, look, it seems like, the person who signed the contract isn't, he's not acting like we wanted him to. He's given us the earnest money, but he's not responding for the last 2 days. And I have a clause in the contract that I can cancel without cause, anytime. So if you're interested, let me know. And then I went and looked, I searched the address to see the listing, and I can see who it was, because what this new other guy did is he changed the price from 45 to 57, and he took his own pictures and he's trying to sell it for 57, and I don't think he's able to. So there's somebody who's trying to kind of daisy chain and make an extra 12,000 from it, like a joint JV or something,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, another thing we can do as far as value is concerned is just go in and Google this
Hmm.
and look at the street view. Now we got to make sure that it's a reasonable, let's see, image capture September 2019. Okay.
It's
So
weird. Mhm.
Avenue T,
That's the
eight,
house.
that's it. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty beat up from the outside.
Okay. But the thing is, with this type of paneling,
Uh-huh.
if the paneling is in good shape, it could be as simple as uh, power wash
Paint.
the outside and paint it. And
Mm,
that's $5,000. I mean, depending on the size of the house.
right.
But let's go over here and see what this side looks like. Okay. Yeah, the windows might be salvageable, but
So
again, I
this,
mean that's
so they,
still a
so
year and
they
a half
put in
away.
new windows. So the
Okay.
windows in the pictures that they sent me are better.
Okay.
And they
Good.
put that in the listing that we put in new windows. And they said that the foundation, electrical, and plumbing look okay, but it needs a new roof.
Okay. Foundation, electrical, and plumbing. I mean, if foundation, electrical, and plumbing are okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a small deal.
Uh,
Because I take foundation issues
okay.
because it opens me up to so many more opportunities. Again, the numbers just have to work,
Right.
right? You can get surprised with foundation issues if you don't really make sure that the numbers work and you know
Right.
that you know what the risk is that you're actually taking on. So yeah, that I mean, let's check this area, see what she looks like. Okay, 2018. So there's this kind of field over here.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like maybe a type of church or something. Okay, church. Oh, we got a new build. That's good for comps. Okay, 2012. These pictures aren't going to be as helpful since they're from 2012, but okay. So we got a new build, decent shape over here. Let's go down here. I mean, these are in good shape, other than the fact that they're a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Right.
That house is in good shape. Yeah, this is a reasonably good area. I'd say like, B minus neighborhood.
Oh, good.
Um, so as far as the area is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. It just depends on what you're going to actually. I wonder how much this went for. I mean, that's not a helpful comp, but you could very reasonably use it to try and force your appraisal north
Oh,
and say,
okay.
hey, there's a house
That
here
makes
that
sense.
sold. This is probably something like a 3.2. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably a little bit bigger than your house, but you say this thing sold at $110 a square foot. I think $80 a square foot for my house is very reasonable.
Reasonable. Yeah.
So, so what's your biggest challenge on this one as far as whether or not you would go for it?
So I think the concern was what's going to happen with the title company, right? Because to me the deal doesn't seem kind of real, but I'm going to use your advice and at least let the title company should be able to deal with it. So if they're underwater by 30,000 or whatever, they gotta bring that to the table, right? Or
Right.
30.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot, I think, if PropStream is right.
Right.
Other than
And,
that, it's just the rehab, like making sure the rehab comes in decent. So
yeah.
my experience with my current guy, the one that I closed on, hasn't been great. He came in really good with the numbers, but he's done a couple things that kind of made me nervous. For instance, right, he told me $2,500 for those mini splits,
Mhm.
and I said that's fine. And it turns out, and the way I found out is he didn't have money to pay this guy or something. Right? I paid him. He wanted 3,700, so I gave him the 3,700 on Facebook, and that money didn't clear. So the guy who installed the mini splits, he actually has he it was completely subbed out. He came and he needed to be paid because the installation was already done. So I said, fine, I'm going to owe you more. I'll pay. And it turns out the guy who did the mini splits charged him $1,300. So he told me it's $650 a unit, and he installed 2 units.
Mhm.
So I paid him, but it just kind of makes me nervous that this guy wasn't being. He was kind of portraying that, hey, I'm going to be transparent and all that, but it doesn't seem that way. So
Right. Yeah.
I think he kind of makes me a little nervous.
Yeah. I think there's reason to be concerned on that, or just there's at least some yellow flags
Yeah.
being thrown up. What does your agreement look like with him?
So it's very informal. He wrote everything on a sheet of paper and he made this thing that, hey, he's going through a divorce. So his wife was doing all the paperwork. So we're going to
Mhm.
have to just do it. So we signed something handwritten on paper and he gave me an estimate for everything. So I was thinking in the beginning that I would tell him that I would buy all the stuff like the toilet and the
Mhm.
countertop and everything that was needed, and he would, just
Install
he
it.
would
Yeah.
basically install, and I would buy the flooring and everything. But he convinced me to not do that. He said, "Okay, just let me handle everything, right?" And then I
Yeah.
realized this was going on. So
Yeah.
it's not a very heavy estimate. He gave me an estimate of about 10,000, and he's done some of it. Like he's finished the painting on it. He's not finished the flooring yet. He's done the painting, and there were two closets to be built, right? We're trying to do it for students, so every bedroom needed a closet. So he did those closets and nothing else, and now he wanted more money already. So
Mhm.
I've given him 5,000. The whole budget was 10,000. So I told him, look, the restrooms all tore apart. How about you fix the restroom, and then we'll talk. And in the
Right.
beginning, he included $500 to fix the leak. Then he came back and said, "Oh no, I got to run these new pipes and all that." So now the cost has already gone up by
Yeah.
1,500. So I think that's so basically what he's given me as a budget. One of the reasons I went with him because he was 20% cheaper than the other guy, and he had some good pictures to show and stuff like that. But I think this scope creeps started to happen already.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I'm writing down some notes so I can make sure to give you the most helpful guidance. One thing you can do is it would be really nice for you to be able to get in the property, right? And just see how much of this has actually been done.
Correct.
One way you can do that is have him send you pictures and videos of the entire house.
Right.
So have him send you a walkthrough of the inside of the house, every
Uh-huh.
room, and a walkthrough of the outside of the house
Okay.
and pictures. That will allow you to understand the entire representation of the property.
Right.
Another thing you can do, and which I recommend, is identifying and finding a project manager.
No, I have that. So I
Okay.
have him go in there. I pay him, $25. So I try not to overdo it, but I can
Right.
have him go once a week. So he
Okay.
goes once a week. So he did go in to tell me what was up,
Okay.
if
Okay.
it was done.
Okay. Great. So the bid was 10. Did you list out all of the things that he was agreeing to fix?
Yes, I have a written sheet. Yes.
Okay. Because one of the things that you can do to protect your downside on things like
Hmm.
this is when you agree with your contractor, list everything out that needs to be done, and then say, okay, I'm gonna need this done, and line item each one and how much it costs. I mean, not nuts and bolts and hardware, like just each one costs this much money.
Correct.
And then if it comes out to $10,000, say, okay, I'm gonna pay you in 3 chunks. I'm gonna give
Hmm.
you 3,500 up front.
Uh-huh.
And then after these things are done, these very specific things are done,
Hmm.
I'll give you the next 3,000. And then at the end, I'll give you 3,500 once the other stuff's done. And I think it's helpful to let the contractor have some input on that, like what order they go in. For example,
Right.
if you were to do outdoor painting first instead of fixing the foundation or something like that, then if it rains, they're pushed back 2 weeks, right? Whereas they could potentially bump up the painting of the outside if it's in good weather, while
Right.
also still working on some of these leaks and whatnot. So you let them help organize the details,
Okay.
and you say, okay, we agreed to this. Okay, this structure, once you're done with this, I can give you the next payment. That
Right.
way it makes your job so much easier in situations like this, where you just say, hey, are you done with those things? Because we talked about this. Well, I didn't, it's going to take this more, and this whatever. Like, well, I've got to have those things done before I can give you the next distribution. because I've got to make sure that we're working in the same direction, right? I can't have too much scope creep.
Right.
What that also protects you from is if you get to the point where you're like, all right, this doesn't work anymore. It gives you a very clear departure point
Okay.
instead of leaving more money on table. Yeah, because I would say right now, ideally, you can get him to finish the project and identify another contractor for a different or for your next project.
Right.
Somebody that is going to be more accurate with their estimates. But if you were to go with this guy again, because there's no contractors, I'd say put a specific agreement in place. I've got one of those. I believe I've got an asset that's an example, or I walked through this in the estimating rehab or managing rehab section of the course, is what an example one of these looks like. And it can look a bunch of different ways. But one of the things I do is I have the contractor write it up so that I can essentially evaluate their level of competence. If they haven't put together one of these before, they might be a really great craftsman, but I don't want just a really good craftsman. I also want someone that can run their business reasonably well, right? So I'd say with him, give him the next steps, like do these things, and then we'll talk. I'll have my guy come over, take some pictures, some videos, and figure it out. If you're also checking on the price of things, like if he says, hey, I need $1,000 to put in a couple toilets, even if you need, like, you might know a toilet's $100, $150, right? Installation isn't going to take, 40 hours to be able to round up to $1,000, right? But if it's something more nuanced that you're like, I don't know how much a mini split costs or something like that, go search Home Depot and see how much is the actual material cost. And if it's like the material's 500 and he's charging you 800, that probably makes sense. But if it's the difference between 500 and 3,000,
yes,
you're like, okay, this, you can at least say, hey, I know on Home Depot it's $500. What's going on? And then if he explains and convinces you that he's trustworthy and says, well, it's not just the toilet, it's that the entire foundation under the toilet and then all the tile in the bathroom's got to be ripped out and all of that stuff, that helps add some context. But push him on that a little bit.
Okay. So do you typically on your projects, do you have the contractor buy everything for you, or do you buy your
Yeah,
own material?
I do contractor purchased, contractor installed, not
Okay,
owner
so they
purchased,
buy,
contractor
they know
installed.
what you like, and they buy whatever
Right.
quality.
And I've vetted my contractor pretty well. Some people choose to do the owner purchased route. That's easier when you live in the market. But what you can do is give someone access to your like Home Depot account, and not just blatant access, but essentially they call you. Home Depot will call you. They'll say, hey, I'm going to go to Home Depot at 9 a.m. Will you be free? Yes, I will. Home Depot calls you, says, hey, can we green light this transaction? You say yes. That gives you more insight into essentially the materials cost, because some contractors will mark up the materials as well, and you don't want them to do that. Ideally they're just providing the labor on top of that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, let's hop over to some of our new friends. Dean, we'll get to you here in just a moment. I'm going to hop over to Amber and Tina and Marshall and ask you guys a couple questions. Just give us some feedback. The three things that I want to talk about are, just give you a chance to introduce yourself to the other people in the group, what your goals are, and then what you need from me or what you need from the others, what would be helpful. And Amber, I'll hop over to you and you can kick us off, and then we'll go over to Marshall and to Tina.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Glowski, and currently I am living in Waco, Texas. So I currently have a 9-to-5 in higher education here. So I'm very excited to get started, get going in the group. I think my first goal was just to commit to coaching. So check mark, already meeting some goals.
Yeah.
My next goal would really be to start identifying potential properties and getting that first investment property. And then longer term, my goal is to start in terms of cash flows, start matching my 9 to 5 income and having that reflect. So I think what I really need is this group, a group of like-minded individuals. I think what I could see myself maybe getting stuck on once I get closer to identifying potential properties is maybe getting too stuck on some details that aren't necessarily deal breakers. When you're just starting, you're trying to be very thoughtful, trying to be cautious, knowing there's things you don't know. And I could see myself maybe, holding back on some things when really they aren't too serious not to invest in a property. So I'd appreciate everyone's feedback as I'm going through the process. I've already enjoyed listening in on the conversation, so excited to be part of the group.
Great. Yeah. Well, we're really glad to have you here. One thing, as you talk about, one of the things you need in addition to the community is just, some guidance and essentially freedom from getting stuck on unnecessary details.
Yeah.
One of the things I will see is, there's really two parts of what we're learning here. One is academic. It's purely just information, the process, and what to do. The other is the psychology behind it, because we all have our own experience with money or what we believe our lifestyle can look like. Everybody comes from a different place. And so oftentimes when people get stuck on the unnecessary details, the root is an insecurity about something else. It's like, I'm scared that I can't do this, or who am I to have passive income? I'm a nobody, something like that. Or, oh, well, I can't find private money, when really they're scared of asking for money, which is fine. It's okay to be all of those things. You just have to be able to identify those things, be honest with yourself, which it turns out is actually pretty difficult to do. Be honest with yourself, and then figure out a way to work through them. And so I'd say most of what we discuss on this call is like 80%, maybe 90% over here. But I think the 10 to 20% over here is really, really catalytic for helping people move forward. So when you do get into that point, just expect that it'll show up.
Yeah.
Those types of things, getting stuck on some of those maybe unnecessary details. Of course you'll identify it, but we and me specifically, I'm happy to help you work through it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Blake.
Of course. Yeah, we're glad to have you here. Let's see. Marshall, I'm going to hop over to you, have you introduce yourself to the group if you're available. There we go. Awesome. Marshall, how are we doing?
Yeah. Hey, I'm available.
Good. Great.
I'm doing well. I'm
Yeah.
so my internet connection is not the best. And I'm happy to be here. And I'm interested in everything that everyone's talked about. And my personal goals are just kind of like the same as everyone else's. I've got ideas about what I'd like to do with life, and I'd like to do more research at sea. I'd like to pay for that research and not have to ask other people for money for that research. And so my biggest limitation is not being on land, and that's where I need help, is to trust people while I'm not around to watch over somebody's shoulders or micromanage something. And I've already learned a lot just listening, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. We're glad you're here. For those that are listening, Marshall does research offshore. And so he's currently offshore right now, and he'll go for stints of time. Now is one of them. And so one of the things that he is really focused on, that's really attractive about this model, is the remote part, but that's also a catalyst for him, or a core focus for him, that if he's going to be working offshore, he needs to have a really reliable, trustworthy team. And so, so I'm excited to help you get there. And as you have any questions, do feel free to jump in the Slack or raise your hand in our conversation when we're on call, and we'll talk about specifics for how you can provide, for example, like what we were talking about with Deepak, extra accountability for your contractor, so they don't, like my first contractor walked off with 12 grand, and that was a gut punch. The property's still performing, but I would have really appreciated not having to donate that $12,000 to somebody. So, we've got ways to be able to protect you from that type of stuff, especially as you're offshore. But we're glad that you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, let me hop over here to Tina, and last of the three. And Tina, welcome to the group. It's good to see you. How are we doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you, Blake and all?
Doing fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an introduction and what some of your goals are and what you need from us.
Sure. So my name is Tina, and I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia. And my goals are in the short term to learn enough and have enough resources to like really jump into this. Sorry, I also have a new baby, guys, and she's hungry. So my goals in the short term are to feel confident enough, essentially, to like really jump in this. This is something that I've been thinking about for a really long time, as you know, Blake, and have been studying on my own independently, and just really wanting to build the confidence to like finally jump in it. In the long term, my goal is to build the life that I really want, so that I can pursue purpose and passion, and really have an impact on my community. So I'm gonna stop there because baby's hungry. But I'm excited to be here and have already learned so much. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're glad you're here. Y'all, Tina is a superhero. She literally like just had her second child a few months ago. Tina, as you're still listening, I know you turned off your video, but we're really glad that you're here. One of the things that you mentioned is confidence. And you'll hear me mention these two things. My goal is to give you confidence and competence. Those two things are implicitly linked together, and they both come together. So you don't just focus on competence and then confidence shows up. In fact, usually what people expect is confidence. First, you've got to be confident, then you can do something. When really, more often than not, it's you do something and you become confident at doing it by doing it. Right. So that's why I think having someone to give you some guidance is so valuable, because like we talked about, essentially we can run a deal here and get to the point where I say, well, if you don't go buy that property, I think I will, and that gives you the confidence to jump into it. And then you get through your first property and you're like, this is not that hard, right? Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be able to do this stuff, right? We've got a bunch of normal, simple people here on the call, many of whom are having great success. So we're excited to join you in your journey and help you get to the point where you can do what you're excited about and, purposeful, passionate stuff.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. All right. Welcome to our new friends. Let's hop back into the questions that you guys have. So whether you're on your first call or on your 1500th call, you raise your hand. Any question is welcome. No stupid questions here, and we'll get going to it. And again, if we don't have any calls, I'm just going to start hopping around to people and trying to figure out where you're at and help you move forward. But for now, we're over to Dean. Dean, how we doing?
Good. It's good seeing all the new people. A lot of cool places: Atlanta, Waco, the ocean. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Man, things have really started to move quickly for me. So I went up to Wichita Falls this past weekend and met with that same seller. Mm-hmm. And he has 7 properties that he wants to sell me. And I have 3 under contract. Heck and yeah, 3 under contract. And I'm going to get the other 4 under contract tomorrow. So
is he going to finance those for you?
Ah, man, see, that's the issue. And that leads me to my next question. So because of that last wholesale deal I did, I have enough dry powder to be able to buy 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've identified a triplex and a duplex that'd get me up to 5 units, and it would get me just about halfway to my freedom number. So
That's awesome, man.
That's going to be really exciting. I'm kind of overwhelmed about it, man. I saw these deals that I was doing the numbers on, and I'm just like, man, it's just a lot of deals. I'm going to probably wholesale 1 or 2 of them, but I want to buy as many of them as I can. Mm-hmm. So here's my questions. He is not, and just, I guess before I ask my questions, just a side note, he is, I'm getting these under contract with a 60-day close, but I can extend that. 0 earnest money, 0 option fee.
Sweet.
So he's like totally giving me a buddy deal on this one. I guess he just liked the fact that I closed so quick. Right. Sold this last one. Mm-hmm. So I have a few ideas. One idea that I had to try to be able to move faster would be, and this is similar to a BRRRR, but so Blake, let me know what you think about this, but it's a little different. With these duplexes and or especially the triplex, there's not a ton of comps. So I already know what I'm going to run into the same problem as last time. There's not a lot of comps. I might need to get commercial financing. So what if I did this? I buy 2 properties up front with commercial financing with a local bank. And then I cross collateralize those properties using the equity I have in those properties as down payment onto the next one. Mm-hmm. And then repeat the process up. So instead of, it's similar to the BRRRRs, but rather than having to cash out, buy, rent, mm-hmm. refinance, repeat again and again and again, I can just deploy, 20,000 as down payments, get the 2 properties, use that cross collateralize up. What do you think about that? That's how he built his portfolio.
I mean, that's a great idea. You'll have to find a lender that will allow you to cross collateralize. And the reason I say that isn't to say that there's not many out there. You just have to be able to find one that will let you do it. Sure. Because they've got enough trust in you and they can rely on you and whatnot. So, and for everybody that's listening, who's wondering what the heck is cross collateralization, if you're buying, let's say you're buying a property, you owe $50,000 on a property, and it's worth $100,000. Cross collateralization is essentially saying the lender saying we'll let you buy another property and use the $50,000 that's outstanding as your security, essentially, or it's similar to what we've talked about with rolling into a portfolio loan, adding another property to a portfolio loan that's not completely maxed out. So one, you'll want to find a bank that does cross collateralization and understand their terms for cross collateralizing. And within those terms, you're going to want to know how high on the LTV will they allow you to collateralize. So, for example, if these 2 properties are worth $100,000 and you owe 60 on each of them, you've got $80,000 of equity to use. But if they only go up to 80% LTV, which is probably going to be the max that they would let you borrow on, you've only got $40,000 available. Mm-hmm. And if it's 75, you've got $30,000 available, right? So those are the terms that you're going to want to know. You might ask him, honestly, if he's in that market, you might ask him, hey, what banks did you work with? What do you think the best ones are? Yeah. And say, hey, explain this cross collateralization process to me. How did your conversations go? And learn from him, because he sounds like a pretty great resource.
Yeah, man, I really lucked out the day I called him. So yeah, I think I found a bank. I know the bank he works with. I'm going to call them tomorrow and see. But you think that could be a way to pursue? The only thing I'm bearish about with it is that it's going to probably be on an adjustable rate, and that's a 5.1. Okay. And I know that interest rates are probably set to rise. So I'd be happier to get something fixed if I can.
Yeah.
So
I mean, 5.1's not terrible because it's fixed for 5 years. So for those listening, when we're talking about a 5-1 ARM means adjustable rate mortgage. So it's fixed for 5 years and then it adjusts every 1 year after that. And the adjustable part doesn't mean that it changes to whatever they want, that they can just bump it up to 20%. It's adjusted based on a predefined term. So they would say, we're going to give you an interest rate right now that's prime plus 2%. Prime is the lending rate that a larger institution like the Fed would use to lend to other banks. So if that number is 2% and it's prime plus 2, your interest rate is going to be 4% because it costs them 2% to have the money. Yours would be 4. So then 5 years down the road, when they have to adjust it, if the prime is 4%, your interest rate is going to be 6%. I wouldn't be terribly concerned about that for multiple reasons. One is 5 years down the road, so your cash flow is going to go up, right? You're going to increase your rent 5% a year or so. So it's going to go up. That's one. And that's just betting on the US economy. In general, you can expect it to go up. So that's one. The other is, if you need to, you can just refinance into a 30-year product at that point.
Sure. Hey, that's a really good point. And I'll just pay them down too.
Right.
Just principal pay down and everything else.
Right. So after 5 years, you'll have paid off, let's say 15% of the house or 15% of the value of your loan.
Sure.
Right? So now instead of 30% equity, you've got 45% equity. You bring that to a bank, your payment's going to be dirt cheap. Spread over 30 years, you're going to be fine. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. You can use cross collateralization. That's a really good strategy. Another thing you might consider doing is trying to find a private lender that will lend you just the hard money down payment. So for example, if you've got terms from a hard money lender they'll pay for 90% of the purchase price and 100% of rehab, and you're buying this property for 50. That means you've got to come up with $5,000 to close on this, plus closing costs, so call it 8. So you got to show up with $8,000. You ask a private lender, you say, hey, will you loan me $10,000 for 10% interest annualized? So you pay them whatever that is. So 12% would be 1% a month. So $10,000, you'd be paying them less than $100 a month.
Right.
Just to borrow that. Then when you refinance 6 months later, part of that refinancing the note would go to paying them back.
That makes sense. I also have private lenders and I have a private lender that I met through that wholesale, and I have a hard money lender. So I'm going to explore all options.
How much does your private money lender have available?
Man, I think he can make I think he said he'd make 75,000 available to me. So it would work on one of the properties.
Or
maybe 2.
Or you could put them together.
Sure.
And use, if each one you got to bring 10 to the table, then you show up with $30,000 of private money. Now, the other thing that you've got to take into account, he might want higher interest because he's not going to have primary lien.
Right.
He'll have junior lien.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. You can talk about 10% or whatever your rates are that you're interested in talking about. But then from there, you've got to just be aware that he might say, well, if I don't have primary lien, you say, well, I tell you what, I'll give you an extra 2% in exchange for primary lien. Or you say, I'll personally guarantee this loan.
Sure.
Right? You're going to personally guarantee it anyway. But it just gives him a little bit more confidence. So that's another way to do it. And if you only need that for 2 properties, then you've got an extra, $45,000 to play with. You might be able to take down one of the properties with it, but.
Right. That's a good way to think about it too. I know the houses for sure. I could just use hard money and burr them. Like, I think the houses are super straightforward. It's really the multis I'm worried about. So, all right, I'll try that tomorrow. I'm going to call them all and cool. See what I can do on the lending side.
Awesome. That's a gold mine though, man.
I know, man.
Exciting.
It's awesome. Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. Your hustling is really paying off.
Thanks, man. If it wasn't for I couldn't have done it without this course or this group.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to see how everything's been working. We'll keep grinding with you and keep you moving forward.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All righty, I am gonna hop over here to Henry. I think you had your hand up. All right, just unmuted you. Henry, how we doing?
Doing good, Blake. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. How can I help?
All right, so a quick update on how I've been doing in general. So I think I'm still going to stick with Montgomery. I've been talking with realtors and trying to network and build wholesalers, a network with wholesalers. And so just chipping away at that. I wanted to see if I could analyze a deal with you, or kind of like look at an email with you. So I connected with a wholesaler.
Okay.
He was one recommended to me by the investors in the Montgomery area. Can I share my screen real fast?
Yeah, let me edit that. Boom, you're good to go.
All right. There we go. Let me know if you can see this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is the wholesaler that the investors recommended me to, and they sent out this email this morning. I'm pretty sure this is probably already got tons of offers on it by now. But I just wanted to walk through this with you, get your thoughts on how this looks, what I should take away from emails like this, and how can I best, I guess, like filter down this information into usable stuff.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I'll walk you through what I would do on this.
Okay.
The first thing I would do looking at this is I'd go look at the pictures. So it says you've got pictures on there, right? Can you click that link?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there, photos. Right under Zillow, yeah. Okay, scroll a little bit. So it looks like we've got flooring work. In general, the paint looks fine though. It looks like it from where I'm looking at. In those rooms, it looks like paint and trim could be okay. Let's see. The sink and the bathroom, it could be just cleaned out. That tub, it might be. I don't know if you'll need a new one there. Let's see. I mean, that might be able to be cleaned up because it's going to be rental grade, right? If you were going to live in it, you'd probably replace everything and you do, a different tile and whatnot. But you might be able to clean that up, clean up the tile. Now the hardware there might be rusted out, like the actual valve and nozzle, but that's not gonna that's not gonna cost a whole lot. So, okay, go back to the rest of the pictures. Okay. Click on that his and hers sink. Yeah. That's not in bad shape. Okay, back out of that. And show me that porch. I want to see the flooring on that porch. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's in pretty decent shape. And it looks like it's got some character to it. Okay, go back. Okay, scroll down a little bit. Keep going. Let me see that ceiling right there that's got the hole in it. Okay, looks like water damage. So if they replaced the roof, then it might have been after that. Otherwise, there's probably some roof issues. You'll want the home inspector and the contractor that gets in there to look at what's behind there, make sure there's not a bunch of mold damage. And if there is, at least that they account for it. Another thing that I've seen in a couple pictures is the central heat and air grates aren't installed. So I'm not sure if the central heat and air needs to be repaired. But again, this is just all kind of contextual, like what's going on in my head. I'm
Okay.
not running numbers in my head right now. My goal for looking at this is how much work is this going to take, so that I can give just a general ballpark on rehab and determine, is this worth my time? Okay, so back out of this again. Okay, keep scrolling. Keep going. So someone already did some work on this. Okay, keep going. Kitchen's in decent shape. Could probably use some paint, but overall it was fine. Okay, keep going. Backyard needs a little bit of work. The colors of the front are really, really interesting. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So that's helpful there. That just gives me an understanding of about what quality it's in already. Because in my mind, 20 grand would go a long way on that house.
Okay.
I think you're looking at like maybe $15,000 to $20,000 of rehab. But again, that's not looking behind things. That's not seeing, is there a mold issue upstairs? Is there a full replace of the roof? But that's just kind of what I think about in my head. So then scroll down a little bit more. Okay, the details. 2.5. Okay, 2.5, 1944. Second floor balcony off the master bedroom, 2-car parking slot or parking slab in the rear. Rent 1,100, 1,200. Okay. So initially, when I see 2-bed, 2.5 bath, I wonder, can we make that a 3-bed? So I might, if I were looking at what you look at, I would go back to some of the pictures and say like, okay, is this one of the rooms, or is this like an additional family room that maybe we could close in? But you can also have that conversation with your contractor and say, hey, could we close this thing and make it a 3-bed, 2.5 bath? Because that value is a little bit higher, because the comps that they're showing are all, 3-bed, 2.5 baths, which is optimistic. So, but 150 seems, given the comps that they sent over, 150 seems decently reasonable. So, okay, stop sharing and I'll show you how I walk through this.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again here. So let's go first. Let's just look generally at this place. So yeah, read me off the address again.
Yeah, it's 2948 Old Farm Road, Montgomery, Alabama, 36111.
Okay. Okay, so that's good. That matches up. Oh, this is a cute little area. Yeah, this is great. Okay. So initially I say, okay, you don't need to worry about whether or not this is a D-class neighborhood. I think that we're looking at this house, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell from the pictures.
Yeah, because these are all kind of hunked together. I would bet one thing that I would look out for is if they ran a comp on a house that's like this, like a single family residence, this maybe this qualifies as a townhome or probably not a condo, but I mean, it's probably going to be a lower value by itself than a house like this.
Yeah.
Which would make sense.
Yeah, they're calling it a townhome.
Okay, good. So then, but one luxury that you have is the roof. There's generally, it's probably going to cost you less to repair the roof because you don't have to deal with a lot of the other siding of the roof, just in general. So my first pass is, okay, when I look around, do I think I'm going to get shot? And if I feel reasonably good about it, then I'll head over to Zillow And again, we're going to start out our soft offer calculator. Let's just take their numbers. 1,100. Purchase price is what, 82.5?
To 82.5. Yep.
And did they give a rehab estimate?
I don't think so.
Okay. So this is where we're at right now. If I assume a $20,000 rehab, if we
Okay.
did 1,200 and they were right on that, we're still reasonably thin. So if this is what it ended up being, and let's say the ARV is what they say it was
150.
Okay. So if this was the case, in order to cash flow this, I'd say getting this closer to 75, maybe 70. I might offer 70 and see what they say if these numbers are right, but I'm just tinkering for now.
Right.
Go back to Zillow, add in this address, 2948. There we go. Okay, 2.5. Estimate here, rent. Okay, those are within range. We don't see any pictures. Let's go over here. Okay. So this is our area. Okay. So we've got some reasonable comps that have sold recently. Let's see what's on the market. See if there's anything on the market right now. No. Sold. Okay, good. Houses and not apartments, but we'll leave these two, townhomes and co-ops. Okay. Let's see, old farm. So you're probably somewhere around here. Okay, this 3-bed, 3-bath. 2948. So that looks like the same townhome type of feel. This is in pretty good shape. Like this is a nicer place, right?
Yeah.
Like granite countertops. You're not gonna be offering that, right? That's retail. So, but that's helpful to know because let's see. Okay. It's a 3, 2.5, so it's probably going to be higher value. So we're going to do 164 divided by 1987. That's 82.50 a square foot. So then 82.5 times your square footage. What's the square footage on your property?
1944.
1944. Okay. Let's see. 1944. Okay, so I would say 160 is your ceiling.
Okay.
So let's keep looking. And like I mentioned, I like to think in the terms of ceiling and floor. So I know, like I have a very high level of confidence that your house is not going to appraise higher than a 3-bed, 3-bath in that condition.
Right.
I think that's a very reasonable statement to say. So now let's go down here. This is 3, 2.5. That's bigger. That went for 112. Let's see what shape this was in. Okay, we don't have any pictures, so that's not super helpful. Another 120, 2.2. Okay, this is helpful because it's got 2 beds, 1,500 square feet. Yours a little bit bigger. Sold for 120. Okay, that's reasonable. Okay, the bones of this are in really good shape. Very rentable. That floor is actually pretty good. Okay, that's nothing special. Cute little area though. The windows are older windows. That bodes well for your property. The kitchen is nicer. And the kitchen, people care about the kitchen. So
Right.
this is probably dated, but probably a little bit better shape than your house is going to be. Okay, including, yeah, that bathroom. Okay. Okay, cool. That's great. So now let's look at that. 120 divided by 1,500. Okay, that's $80 a square foot times your 1944, 155. Okay, so now I'd say your ceiling is 155 now, but it's closer. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're getting more and more comparable to what
we. Okay, so Old Farm. I wonder if these properties back up to like here. Because if so, then this would be on the same street. Okay, so we got a 2-bed, 3-bath, 2,400 square feet. Oh, weird. Okay. That's nothing special as far as bathrooms are concerned. Whoa. That is really weird. And they've got a carpeted bathroom. Wow. Someone really, really went to town on that thing. Okay. So what's this going to be? 132,500. 49. Okay, 53 times 1944 puts you at 103,487. I think that's going to be low. The reason for that is it's a nice house. Like the bones are in really good shape, but almost everything you've got to paint. Like this would actually be a really good example of a house to buy with a really moderate amount of effort. It could be really great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think if this room didn't look like this and instead was white trim and a light gray background, it would be really pretty. But instead, they've got this like lime green thing. Okay, so
I don't know if it also matters because I think that was sold in 2018.
Okay.
Would that change our evaluations?
Good eyes, yeah. I would just take that into context. I want to get as many data points as possible. And right now, all of these are on the same street.
Right.
That's pretty good. Another 3.3, 29.77, sold at 161 late last year. Okay, this is probably nicer than we really even need to consider. Yeah, this is well, as far as the decorations probably make it look nicer than it actually is because that's a laminate countertop. But everything is in really pretty good condition. Okay. So just for context, 161 divided by 2,031. $80 a square foot. $154. Okay. So what that tells me is I would be really surprised. I would be surprised if yours appraised at 150. Because this one sold, it's a 3-bed, 3-bath. Yours is a 2.5 bath. Okay, so this is a 3, 2.5 bath. So an extra bed. This one's marginally bigger, but it's got an extra bed. And your equivalent would be 154, but this is in much better condition. You agree?
I think so, yeah. Or like you said, I think the decorations on the inside make it look
Right. Yeah.
scale.
So part of the way that I try and take those things out of the factor is just by getting more data points. And you as an engineer, you understand that full well. So here's one that sold at 105 late last year. Okay, could use some paint. Okay, so this is not as nice as what yours is going to be, right? This is like almost a wholesale deal, right? So 1610 and 105. 105. $65 a square foot times 19. 126. Okay, so now we're getting closer because yours is nicer than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a 2-bed, 2-bath. So yours has inherent value higher than this because it's got an extra half bath.
Right. Slightly larger, and I think arguably the lighting is probably better too.
Yeah, the lighting's better. Your cabinets are going to be painted probably, so it'll just look nicer in general. This is still laminate, so I would continue to kind of narrow down. I'd continue to look at some of these. The best is going to be properties that are like on your street or nearby, similar properties. But I would continue to do that because right now, essentially, we're at anywhere from 126 to 155. So maybe it ends up being, 140 or so, but that's still a lot more confidence than we had earlier, right? 140 as the ARV, so you'll be able to get all your money back out. And if you can get it at 70 and the rehab actually is 20, then this is a great property. Now, if your rehab comes in at 15, you can be in really good shape. Now, we didn't look at rent, but we're going to do the same thing for rent. You want to do that?
Let's do it for like just one or two, but I feel pretty confident about the process.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we just switch to the rent tab and then see what other properties in that area are renting for.
Okay, here. And the reason I search for it is just because it brings me to the right part of the city. This one right here. So for rent, houses, condos, I include apartments as well because your property is going to be more valuable than an apartment.
Okay.
So not many over here being rented, or at least for rent right now. 1540 square feet for $1,600. See, this is one reason why you can't just say, oh, the wholesaler's way wrong in a bad way or way wrong in a good way, right? Because this house is not in as good shape as your house is going to be, but it's being rented for $1,600. Now, asterisk is it's still on the market, so it could be overpriced, but it's being leased for $1,600. The other difference is they've got a yard, right? They've got an entire house. So think about a family that might have a couple littles, or maybe they got a dog running around. It's nicer to have a little bit of room, right? But you trade off the street that you were looking at earlier, Old Farm, is actually a really charming street. So there's a trade-off there.
Right.
1,600 though, that's not a small amount. I mean, we change this. I mean, we might be able to pay.
We might even be able to get away with their asking price.
Right. Yeah. And let's say the rehab is 20. Yeah, that's not a bad deal. I mean, you're gonna have to leave a couple $1,000s in at the end, maybe $2,000 or $3,000. But if it's something like this, and it'll cash flow $400 a month, you're gonna pay yourself back in 4 or 5 months. So let's keep looking. This 1,900, that's a 5-bed, 3-bath. That doesn't really help you. These can be kind of helpful. 3 2-bath at $999 and up, because inherently people will pay more for a house than they will for an apartment. 3-bed, 2-bath. So they're renting a 3-bed, 2-bath with less square feet. Granted, it's probably in a little bit better shape, but for $1,100. So I think it's safe to say you're going to rent it for more than $1,100.
Right.
Especially because there's not a whole lot being rented down here or in this area that you're looking at.
Yeah.
3-2 for $975. That's pretty far away though. Other side of a major thoroughfare. Yeah, so what I would do is I'd say maybe it's 1,300. And we play around with that. But at least what we know right now is this property is worth considering. Okay. So now our next step is going to be, we need to validate some of these numbers. Okay. We need to send somebody out there or get a professional's opinion. So call up a property manager and say, hey, how much is this going to rent for? Because right now it looks like the major indicator for us as to whether or not this is going to be a good property is how much it's going to rent for.
Okay.
Because when we threw 1,600 in there, this was a perfect property. When 1,100 was in there, it was like, we're going to have to offer them pennies on the dollar to be able to get this thing to work.
Right.
But that's the process. Is it worth my time even considering? Okay, looks like it could be. Now I'm going to run my own numbers. Okay, it's really worth me spending more time and getting an expert's opinion, then move into the expert opinion phase. And anywhere in this area, it's reasonable to make an offer. So if you get to the point where you said, okay, these numbers are all validated, like I've got a quote for rehab at $20,000, and my property manager says that they think they can get $1,500 a month for it, and you put $1,400 in for your analysis, and it still works. And a realtor says I could get $145 to $150 for that. That's good, right? Those numbers then give you the confidence to be able to say, I'm going to go ahead and make an offer on this. So does that help you with the analysis that you wanted to do and achieve what you wanted to get done?
Yeah, I think that's a really good look at how to approach one of these deals that the wholesaler offers me. I think I might have a follow-up question after this, but I'll let Jay take a turn.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I'd say for you this coming week is analyze at least 5 deals. Like get all of the deals that come through for you, even if the numbers look like they're terrible, find out what would you offer on that.
Okay.
Right. So get to that point, because I think for you, your engineering background, and I identify with this because I'm similar. You're going to want to make sure that you know the numbers before you jump in. And in order to know the numbers before you make an offer, you're going to have to practice it a lot of times. So try and get in at least 5 deal analyses this week. I think ideally you're doing maybe 2 a day, but 5 in a week I think is really good. And then you can come with some other questions that are a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, I'm going to hop over here to Jay. Jay, thanks for your patience, man. How can I help?
Yeah, how's it going? No worries. That was actually really helpful to watch, though. Thanks for bringing that up, Henry. I'm starting to hit the pavement on networking, and I was wondering, what have you found are the best methods for finding quality general contractors? Right now, my thoughts were to identify property managers, try to get referrals that way, like they might have the best, and then get connections from realtors, and then Facebook groups, and then bigger pockets, or is that a good sequence, or do you suggest something different?
I would get recommendations from other investors.
Okay.
Right. I mean, property managers, that's fine. Realtors, that's fine. But really, like think about it from a property management standpoint. And we've had a couple people where this has been the case. A property manager is under the same business operation as a contractor. So they recommend that contractor, but they haven't really paid them. Right. They haven't used them as a contractor. So I would try and target someone like you. So say, hey, other investors, who have you been using for your contracting work, and what are they good at? And then, of course, you're gonna get some recommendations that are like self recommendations. Like someone's gonna say, hey, check out my website, or maybe they'll PM you. And if they PM you, that's great. Have them send some pictures. Options are good in general. Options are good. You'd rather choose from 10 different contractors than only have one and feel like you have to go with them, right? So ask for recommendations from other investors first. I think that's going to be the most valuable for you. And then start looking up those. I would bet, especially with the market that you're in, you're going to end up getting 5 or 6 suggestions from other investors. And then you can start asking other people as well.
You feel like the Facebook pages are a good medium for that?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as like the deal flow, I've been connecting with wholesalers. Can you give me an idea of a metric that I should, I guess it's kind of to vet, am I getting like quality wholesalers, guys with deals? Like, what's a good amount of deal flow that I should have coming in as a metric into my inbox?
That's a good question. Because really it only takes one good one to buy. The more the better, in my opinion. I think if you've got, it's hard to put a number on it right now with the market, because the way that I've essentially started doing things is I'll spend 1 month and I'll close on like 3, 4, or 5 properties. And the next month I take all of my outcomes from that, all the stuff that I learned, or the stuff that I was like, oh, this would be helpful to put into content, and I build it out and I put it up in the course. Right. So I'm not looking for like daily stuff as much, but I think if you get 3 to 5 deals a day, you're going to find something.
Okay. Cool.
The more the better. But if you get 3 to 5 deals a day, I think you're in reasonable shape. Now you also got to understand that if those 3 to 5 deals are all like 90% of ARV and they need a bunch of work, I personally wouldn't qualify those as like helpful deals. I would probably unsubscribe from those types of lists. But yeah, does that help?
Totally. It tells me that I need to just be networking until I'm seeing pretty consistent flow. So yeah, that's helpful.
So I'd say a more helpful metric that I've seen is have a list of about 40 active wholesalers. And reach out to them every couple of weeks, asking them like, hey, do you have any deals under contract that I should consider?
I will.
Also, anytime you talk to somebody in the market, if you're on the phone with them or messaging back and forth with them, ask them one of these 2 questions. Hey, do you know anybody that I should connect to that might be able to get me, or that might have properties available? Even if they're another wholesaler, that's fine. Hey, do you know anybody else that has properties available that I should consider? The other is, anytime you're talking to somebody about real estate, you might also ask them, you know any private lenders that I should connect with? One of those 2 things. Always ask one of those 2 questions. Worst case scenario, the answer is no. I mean, an average, like a good scenario would be not right now, but then in 3 weeks, they're like, hey, I bumped into somebody. Were you the guy that wanted to connect with a private lender? And you're like, yeah. And the best case scenario is they're like, oh yeah, actually my brother does that. And he's got 300 grand available. He's been looking to try and deploy. Right. So there's not really a downside on that.
Yeah. It seems like, okay. No, that makes perfect sense. So you had brought up when you were looking at the Google Maps earlier, you're like, well, you've mentioned it twice on this call now, right? You're like, oh, that's a decent looking neighborhood. And then I think it was with D-backs. You're like, oh, that's probably like a B-. What are things that you see that you're like, oh man, that is a D-class neighborhood. You want to stay away from that?
Yeah. I generally ask myself, like, would I walk around there? Like, would I go on a walk and like hold my wife's hand and like walk around and feel comfortable? Like not like flexing my traps and being like looking out of the corner of my eyes so that people like don't approach us. You know what I mean? Like, do I feel like I'm going to get hurt? Am I safe there? That's one. If the answer is no, I don't even continue. I just move along.
Yeah.
The more, I guess, granular things that I see are cars parked in the front yard, yards that are like all dirt because they've had cars parked in the front yard, or like cars up on blocks, multiple cars parked in front of a house, like 4 cars in front of one house, but multiple of that.
Yep.
Like those types of yards that are not taken care of at all.
Yep.
And so this is, again, you're looking at this as a street, right? You could have one house on a street that is in terrible shape,
Totally.
and there's 3 cars parked in the front yard. That doesn't mean that the neighborhood is a D-class neighborhood. It just means that that's the worst house on the street.
Yeah.
But if there's multiple of those, you've got to start wondering like, and then I'll go up other streets and kind of look around.
Got it. Yep. No, that makes sense. That's my main questions. Thanks for firing those out. Looks like I'll let Tina get a couple minutes.
Yeah, for sure. What I'd say for you this week, it will be most helpful for like your kind of next barrier is get like 5 recommendations for contractors.
Yep.
And have each of them send over pictures of their work and like how they work with investors. Maybe look at their website. And then maybe if you can this coming week, it'd be great. But maybe in the week after that, get on the phone with like your 2 favorite and go through some of these interview questions.
My thought, Blake, was to target property managers and use them to get contractors as the most important thing. Is it kind of like 6 to 1?
I mean, you can target property managers and use them to get contractors. I don't think property managers are the best recommendation for contractors, but they can give you good ones because they still will work with people. I mean, I would ask when you and this goes for everybody. When you're asking for something on Facebook, make sure that you're not asking for too much. If you ask for too much, you won't get anything. So the max question I'd ask is 2. So if you're going to say, hey, looking for recommendations for property managers and contractors, that's the most I'd ask for. I wouldn't ask for a 3rd one because then people kind of get sensory overload and they just like, they scroll past, right? So, but you could ask for contractors and property managers. Heck, you could do those in 2 separate posts if you wanted to, like a day apart. It's probably fine. But yeah, again, recommendations for property managers. You could get recommendations on property managers from like reviews of tenants, but a tenant's review of a property manager doesn't really help a whole lot. And in general, you like most of them, like if you're a tenant and you like your property manager, you're probably not commenting anything. And if you don't like your property manager, you're definitely commenting. And it doesn't really help you for your role. You want to know, am I going to be able to trust this person with my investment?
Yeah.
Are they going to treat my property like it's their property? Because who knows? I mean, a property manager could be great for a renter, but end up costing way too much and losing all of the money of the investor. The renter's taken great care of. They've got, diamond encrusted plumbing, but is that really helpful? No, it's not. So I'd get recommendations on maybe 3 to 5 property managers and 3 to 5 contractors this week.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. I'm going to hop over here to Tina real quick. All right, Tina, what do you got?
Hey, so I got a few questions. So this week I worked on, is there someone who can go next? My other one has
That's totally fine.
Okay.
We love kiddos here. In fact, I think what was it Taylor Jervis mentioned in the comment, he welcomed you. He's got 3 little ones. So feel free to work with your little one, and if anybody else has questions, we can hop back on those. And maybe that's Dean or Henry that has a follow-up question from earlier, or I can address some of the other individuals on the call, and we can get some. Okay, I'll hop back over to Tina. It looks like she's good to go.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes, I stated the comment earlier about loving babies because I have 2 of them, and they're wonderful.
Yeah, well, me and my wife, we want to. I think I mentioned this on the call. We want to have our own little army of kiddos.
Yes. You'll have your hands full. They're amazing, but you'll have your hands full.
Well, great. What questions you got?
Okay, so this past week I was working on identifying my market which, if I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be so challenging. And I think what I was experiencing was analysis paralysis. So my question in there is, I guess, how much weight to put on factors such as like vacancy and population growth? Because when I was trying to identify a market, I felt like a lot of the markets that I was looking at were in the negative when it came to things like that. So I had three main markets that I was looking at: Cleveland, Ohio, Montgomery, and then I also threw Baltimore in there because that's just an area that I'm personally familiar with, and feel like I've had some success there. So I threw Baltimore in there. All three of them had negative population growth. All three of them had vacancies above 6%. And I think there was like one more area where I was like, yeah, this isn't, this isn't positive either. Mm-hmm. So I guess I was wondering, what your thoughts are there, how much weight to put on those things, or should I just really focus on the rent to price ratio and some of the more like, I guess, like financial type of factors?
Yeah, the rent to price ratio, you're essentially qualifying different aspects of the market, right?
Yeah.
The rent to price ratio is it a cash flow market?
Mm-hmm.
The others are economic indicators, like what's the health of the market? If I buy a cash flowing property, am I going to cash flow it in 5 years, or is it going to be completely devalued and I'm not going to be able to make any money off of it? Mm-hmm. Right? Am I going to lose a bunch of money? So those are the two things you're really looking at. The rent to price ratio is really, really important. That's probably one of the top ones. Yeah. The others are a little bit more contextualized. For example, let's say that vacancy was 7% or 8% in one market. Would that be a deal killer for me? Probably not.
Okay.
Because of two things. One, there are other factors to consider. Is the population growing? Is the rent to price ratio 2.5%? Is it worth me essentially saying I might have a little bit more vacancy cost, but I'm going to make more money overall? I'm comfortable with that. So vacancy, if it's double digits, I would hesitate for sure, but I would want to compare it to against everything else. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing is with the rent to price, or with the vacancy rate, you're looking at kind of the default vacancy rate. Your property manager is going to be better than that. So what you might consider doing is if the vacancy rate is the one thing holding you back about a market, I would call 2 or 3 property managers and just get a quick gauge for what their vacancy rate is, their organizational vacancy rate. Because if the average vacancy rate for an area is 6%, but your property manager can do twice as good and get it at 3%, great. I mean, you're looking for a really good property manager anyway. So whatever the average is, they've got to be above average. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that vacancy rate doesn't concern me a whole ton.
Okay.
Now, population declining, if it's greater than 1%, I start to hesitate a little bit. But anything 0.5% negative and up, I'm fine with. In fact, when I ran that, when I pulled all the data for the cash flow report that I put out, when I filtered down all of the data metrics that I got, or the metrics that I got, and the metric for population growth, I said anything that's over negative 0.5%. So all positive growth and slightly declining. This kind of enters into one area where a market's going to be one of 3 things. A declining market, which we're not going to invest in because we want our property values to hold. Mm-hmm. A growing market, or a linear market, or a flat market. Linear is really just the nice way of saying it's not growing. It's a flat market. We want to invest in one of these two. Both have their own distinct values. The value of an appreciating market is that your property value is going to grow without you doing anything, right? Mm-hmm. The trade-off of an appreciating market is you're going to get priced out faster. Usually growing markets have like a 3 to 5 year window, right? So the faster it grows, the faster you're going to get priced out. And an example of this could be potentially even Waco. We've talked about Waco before. Right now it's affordable, who knows if in the Chip and Joe effect, property values in Waco grew 10% last year. So if that continues to happen in 5 years, it's definitely not going to be affordable for a cash flowing market. So that's the appreciating. The flat markets, the trade-off is you don't get as much just inherent principal growth from your appreciation. But the benefit is when you put together a local team, you can use them for a longer time. So the window of use for that team and your familiarity with the market has a lot more window. Whereas on the appreciating market, you would have to go build out another team in a different market. So both of them are fine. So I wouldn't be concerned if you invested in either of them. Both of them are fine. So if it's just a little bit negative, I wouldn't be worried about it. If it's more than half a point negative, I would look at the trailing 5 to 10 years of data to see, has it been declining 1% a year for the last 10 years? That would be concerning for me. Because if you bought 10 years ago, you've lost a lot of value on your property. So that's something to consider. The other thing that is important to note, given our current economic climate, is that if your data is immediate, like right now, vacancy could be higher than normal because of COVID. So that just might be something that you're considering. There may be people that lost their job, they moved back in with their parents. So the place they used to live is now vacant and nobody's going to move into it. Not a whole lot of people are changing where they live right now. So that's something to consider as well. I see you muted yourself again, probably because the kiddos are in the background. I'll unmute you and we can keep talking. Does that help?
Yes, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Because again, I think maybe I was just getting stuck in the weeds analysis process, but yeah, that's super helpful. Another question you kind of touched on earlier. So in my research, looking at mainly Montgomery, I did see a lot of like 2 bedrooms, maybe 2 baths, 1 bath. In my experience, I typically stayed away from those, feeling like people more so wanted 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, but that was more for like resale. So I just wanted your thoughts on buying properties that are 2 bedrooms. Do you feel like they would need to be bumped up to 3 bedroom? Do you feel like renters are okay with 2 bedrooms? I mean, I'm also going to look at like the comps, but this was more so when I was trying to figure out a market. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Obviously look at the comps, but my opinion is if the numbers work, they work. So if it's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and you can cash flow $1,500 a month, do it. Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to find that. Right. That's an extreme to illustrate a purpose, an illustrate a point. But a good example of this is Louisville. One of the students, Jarrett Ford, is investing in Louisville. And the entry point for him to get into properties in Louisville that cash flow $300, $400, $500 a month, they're 2 1.5s. And so that's fine. In general, like my general suggestion is try and get 3 2s because they hold their value the best. They're the most marketable. When you have a larger pool of people to sell to when you do sell, and those people have they're more families than they are like individuals buying a 2-1. They would be a family looking to buy, and so size is a little bit more important to them. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick 3-2, but I wouldn't be concerned about 2 1.5. I think it's great to be able to get 3 2s, but if the cash flow works on a 2 1.5, that's fine.
Okay, good to know. And then I think this is probably my last question. I've been using Rentometer for like rental comps. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you feel like that's a reliable source?
Yeah, Rentometer is good, not great. Like it's not going to give you a perfect number. I would use that as, and I think I mentioned this earlier, you've got a couple phases of analysis for these numbers that you're going to find out. There are 4 numbers you need to know. It's the purchase price. That's easy. They give it to you. The rent, rehab, and ARV. Each of these, you need to have an expert validate. So first, you've got to get your kind of initial first pass, decide, is this worth my time? Then you put some time into it and say, oh, wow, this might actually be a really good deal. Or you put a little bit more effort into it and you realize, no, this isn't worth my time. Then if it passes that, you've got to get those confirmed by an expert. And that expert would be either a contractor giving you a quote, a property manager saying, I could rent this for this much money, or a realtor who would, for your ARV, say, I could sell it for that much, or it would appraise for that much. So those are the experts that you're looking for. Your rehab is going to be a contractor, your ARV is going to be a realtor, and your rent is going to be a property manager. In these two areas, that's where you would use Rentometer as like a, does that make sense? But in general, what Rentometer does is it takes all of the properties that have been rented, and their algorithm is not very sophisticated. There's not really a real estate data company that has a sophisticated algorithm for ARV or for rent. Really what they do is they'll say, take all the properties within half a mile, aggregate them together, break them out maybe by 2, 1.5, or it's probably just by bedrooms, 2, 3, 4, and then average all of those together. And you likely know in a lot of markets, the rentability of a property changes by street. The ARV changes by street, right? So that's not 100% helpful, but it at least gives you a range. It can get you into trouble if you use it as your golden standard and you say maybe it's listed at 1,200, but because it's a couple streets over, it actually only rents for 950. And then you realize, well, I'm not going to be able to cash flow this thing. The luxury about the model we use, the BRRRR, is if you're not going to be able to cash flow it, and you're toward the end of your rehab, you just sell it and you flip it, and that's fine. You're going to have to pay higher taxes, but at least you're not out a bunch of money. But yeah, so Rentometer is something that I would use as a resource, but not as my confirmation of essentially expert validation.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful to know. Those were all my questions.
Awesome. Great. We're glad you're here. All right, guys. Man, we have cruised through things. It's 6:40 Central Time. I've got a few more minutes. So if you got extra questions and you want them answered, go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll wrap this thing up and we'll leave you guys to make all the mad amount of progress that you're going to make this week. Dean closing on another 15 properties, probably putting us all to shame. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Hop down to participants, raise hand. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Perfect. All right, guys. Have a good rest of the week. We'll talk to you guys soon.